So I finished last week's edition of Under the Radar with a short speech given by Nigel Farage to the European Parliament on Tuesday last week. And in that speech, he mentioned a recently published survey on attitudes towards immigration conducted by Chatham House. Here's the speech again for those that missed it.
For the group of Europe, Freedom and Direct Democracy, Mr. Farage.
I feel like I'm attending a meeting of a religious sect here this morning. It's as if the global revolution of 2016, Brexit, Trump, the Italian rejection in the referendum has completely bypassed you. You can't face up to the fact that this bandwagon is going to roll across Europe in these elections in 2017. A lot of citizens now recognise this form of centralised government simply doesn't work. Whether it's the miseries inflicted upon a country like Greece by the euro, the unemployment caused by bad regulation, or the feeling that none of us are as safe in our cities because of the disastrous common asylum policy. But at the heart of it is a fundamental point. Mr Verhofstadt this morning said the people want more Europe. They don't. The people want less Europe. And we see this again and again when people have referendums and they reject aspects of EU membership. But something more fundamental is going on out there. Yes, you can say they're lying, and I've no doubt that many of you here, when you hear what I'm about to say, will probably despise your own voters. Because just last week, Chatham House, the reputable group, published a massive survey from 10 European member states, and only 20% of people want immigration from Muslim countries to continue. Just 20% want us to keep on allowing people in from Muslim countries, which means your voters have a harder line position on this than Donald Trump or myself or frankly any party sitting in this parliament. And that is where we're going. And I simply cannot believe that you're blind to the fact that even Mrs Merkel has now made a U-turn and wants to send people back. Even Mr Schulz thinks that it's a good idea. The fact is, the European Union has no future at all in its current form, and I suspect you're in for as big a shock in 2017 as you were in 2016.
So that was a bold claim Mr Farage made, that only 20% of citizens surveyed from 10 European countries want further immigration from Muslim-majority countries, and thus they have a harder-line stance toward immigration than even Donald Trump. So the survey Farage referred to was this one published by Chatham House, which surveyed nationally representative samples of the population aged 18 or over in Austria, Belgium, France, Germany, Greece, Hungary, Italy, Poland, Spain, and the UK. So here's the preamble to the survey. President Donald Trump's executive order to ban citizens of 7 Muslim-majority states from entering the US for 90 days and temporarily freeze all refugee arrivals, including Syrians indefinitely, has been interpreted widely as an attempt to curtail the inward migration of Muslims, which Trump and his supporters argue pose a threat to national security. Trump's policy has generated a backlash among some of Europe's leaders. Angela Merkel's spokesman said the Chancellor had explained the UN Refugee Convention to the President in a phone call discussing the order, while London Mayor Sadiq Khan argued that the invitation to the President for a state visit to Britain in 2017 should be withdrawn until the ban is rescinded. Meanwhile, leaders of Europe's populist right-wing parties, including Geert Wilders, Nigel Farage and Matteo Salvini, have heaped praise on Trump. Amid these competing views, where do the public in European countries stand on the specific issue of Muslim immigration? There is evidence to suggest that both Trump and these radical right-wing parties reflect an underlying reservoir of public support. Drawing on a unique new Chatham House survey of more than 10,000 people from 10 European states, we can throw new light on what people think about migration from mainly Muslim countries. Our results are striking and sobering. They suggest that public opposition to any further migration from predominantly Muslim states is by no means confined to Trump's electorate in the US, but is fairly widespread. So the respondents in this survey were given the following statement. All further migration from mainly Muslim countries should be stopped. They were then asked to what extent did they agree or disagree with this statement. And here are the results. combining the results of all 10 countries, 55% agree with the statement, whilst 20% disagree. Or to put it another way, for every person that disagrees with the statement, almost 3 agree. In every single country surveyed, more people agree with the statement than disagree. Only 2 countries, Spain and the UK, had agreement levels lower than 50%. But even in those countries, more people agree than disagree. And in the UK, by a ratio of 2 to 1. The strongest levels of agreement were in Poland, 71%, Austria, 65%, Hungary and Belgium, 64%, and France, 61%. And breaking it down by socio-demographic differences, you get the expected outcomes. That is, women disagree more than men, but not by a lot. The young disagree more than old people. People with higher levels of education disagree more than those with less education. And city dwellers disagree more than rural people. But we shouldn't overstate those differences. In every single category, even the one with the most disagreement, 18 to 29-year-olds, those that agree easily outnumber those that disagree. So 2 points here. This statement on Muslim immigration is not limited to the 7 countries on Trump's travel ban list. It's broader than that. And the ratio of those that agree compared to those that disagree is higher than that in the US, where there's a majority of support for Trump's travel ban. So Nigel Farage is exactly right. Citizens from these 10 European countries have a harder line stance on Muslim immigration than Donald Trump. And this shouldn't be surprising to anyone. These countries are on the front lines of the refugee crisis, and some of them have experienced multiple terrorist attacks in recent years. Places like the United States and Australia are far removed from the realities of the refugee crisis and how it affects communities in those regions. Unless you think the results of this survey are a one-off, they align somewhat with the findings of a Pew Research survey released last year about attitudes towards Islam and Muslims in Europe. Specifically, 5 of 10 countries surveyed had negative views about Muslims living in their countries. So the label applied to Trump in much of the discourse around immigration is that his proposed bans make him a Nazi. So by that logic, given the results of the Chatham House survey, you would think that the actual Nazis had prevailed in World War II. So either we're living in a world infested with Nazis, or one in which citizens are reacting to the realities of forced immigration happening in their own countries. I know which one I think is more likely. Let me know what you think in the comments below.